Welcome to Not This, Not That, where we push our boundaries of understanding and perception. I am your host, Reverend Patricia, and I invite you to join me as we open to the possibility that things may not be exactly as you believe, as you've been told, that there could be more, that in our collective consciousness is the potential for the all. You can find Not This, Not That on sacredstoriesmedia.com and on Apple Podcasts and all streaming services on the Sacred Stories podcast. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Beth Green, an original thinker and a catalyst for change. Beth is the granny of Granny Rocks, Rumblings of a Revolution, music, humor, and commentary. Granny Rocks live streams 3 times a week on Facebook and is Beth's chance to speak to her audience about everything human, and she talks from the inside out. The show combines her wit, wisdom, and uncommon sense, and it airs Mondays and Wednesdays at 6:30 Pacific time, and then on Thursdays she broadcasts Dreams of Peace piano music, where she improvises on the acoustic piano by connecting her spirit to yours. The music is amazing, inspiring, moving, and uplifting, and on all of her live streams, Beth is accompanied by her husband, sweet baby James Maynard. So it's my absolute pleasure to say, welcome Beth Green to Not This, Not That.
I am delighted to join you today, and I love the name of your show.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, it's interesting because I named it this because I feel like in this world, nothing is really as it seems. There's always more. And maybe it was my way even a couple years ago before I feel like the world got so crazy, divisive on my side, your side, to just say like, guys, there's something in the middle and it's probably more than you think, but it's not one way or another. So
I agree with you. I think that we get attached to our opinions and our thoughts and our concepts, and we are blind to reality.
And you know what? And I think that we stop ourselves a lot when we get so tied to what we think something is or what we've been taught something is, that we actually impede our ability to go deeper, to experience more.
Oh, absolutely. I have a book that anyone can download for free on my website called Living with Reality. And it's steps of how can we shift consciousness on the planet. You go through these 9 steps, I call them platforms. And one of them, next to the last one, is becoming not knowing. And I was guided by my inner voice to hold all my beliefs lightly, including the ones around metaphysics. In fact, I had got inner guidance come to me in 1980. And then I said, do you really exist? And they said, what do you care? Does it work? So, it's like that. It's like we really don't know. We make up most everything. And then we get attached to that the way it is. And our whole society is like that. Women wear high heels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, they make our calves look really good. I'm just going to say that I am a high heels woman. So, but it is absolutely true that, and especially even in the world of consciousness, when I first started dipping my toes in the spiritual waters, maybe a decade ago, I just thought I was going to find this vast pool of unknowingness, and what I found is that many people think they know a real lot. And I truly do, but that just again is, I think the not this, not that for me is my way of saying, let's just stay open, let's go a little deeper maybe.
I think that what I believe is that we really aren't capable of understanding any of it anyway. So we get attached to an interpretation because that makes us feel safe. But as you said, it actually makes us unsafe because we get trapped in the belief and we blind ourselves to the reality, which is what's really important, and what we need to respond to is reality and not our make-believe interpretations of reality. So it actually creates less safety, which is what the ego does anyway. We think that the ego is going to make us safe, and it doesn't. It makes us unsafe, in my opinion.
You know, I opened the show saying you're an original thinker and a catalyst for change. And I just want to share with you, I don't know if you remember this, but in my audience, this is kind of a little background inside. But I was so thrilled to have Beth on the show today because about 8 years or so ago, when my first book came out, and I was, looking for interviews, I went to Beth, right? And I was like, would you like to interview me? And Beth, you probably don't remember any of this, but you were basically like, why should I interview you? Like, tell me why, like, and tell me what that, that's original, that's different. It wasn't just, you made me think, you really made me think. And I did. And I wrote back to you why you should interview me and what my original thinking was. And you said, okay, all right, then let's have that conversation. And I was like, damn it, I didn't know if I liked you or not, but I was like, she made me think, and I appreciate that. And I thought we had a great interview, and I remember that all these years later.
Oh, we did have a great interview, and I loved what you said, what your reason was why I should interview you. And you see, I don't believe in I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. I really believe that what we do, our purpose is to add value to people's lives. And so we have to be out of our egos, even in who we choose to interview or where we go, to what we're offering and why we're offering it. What's our motive? What interests me is not what we do, but why we do it, because that's really what guides our lives, is these unconscious motivations. So to me, it wasn't about, oh, I want publicity, so would you please do this for me? I don't believe in that. I believe that there needs to be some reason for everything that we do that has to do with doing what is for the highest good of all, including ourselves. And I have to watch myself on that too, because I have to say, well, why should you interview me? I have to do the same thing. Why should people listen to me on the, on Facebook or on YouTube? Why should anybody listen to me? It's not about I want business or I want to be famous or whatever it is. I mean, those are all ego motivations, right? It has to be that there's a contribution that I'm making to the whole, and that's my belief. So it has to apply to everything. So I can understand how you felt, but I wasn't challenging you in a negative way. It was like, I really want to know, because I'm not in the business of shaking hands, you know what I mean, to further myself.
Right. Oh, yeah. No, I completely, respected the way that you did it. And again, I mean, I wouldn't have come back with my reasons if I didn't respect your motivation. And as a breath of fresh air, really as a breath of fresh air in so many ways. And I remembered you from then, and I respected you since. And I'm so thrilled. I mean, so let's just jump to Granny Rocks, because Granny Rocks is phenomenal. I've watched many episodes, and
did you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And let me just say, your piano playing is sublime. It is just so beautiful. And so let me just explain what Granny Rocks is. And I mean, I'll let you as well, but me as a audience member. So Granny Rocks.
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, so Granny Rocks, and anyone that's on Facebook, I would encourage you to go to Granny Rocks On, which is the, at Granny Rocks On, and you'll find Granny Rocks, the music and message of Beth Green. So twice a week, Beth and sweet baby James Maynard, her husband, you talk about all these different topics. And I think you have such a large audience, and you have such beautiful engagement. And I believe it's because, I know it's because you really do speak from your heart. You speak without an agenda. You are looking to contribute to the whole, and you're so real, Beth. You're just so genuine and loving and real and insightful. I mean, I'll let you tell the audience in just a moment, you are an intuitive counselor as well, but so it's not just you talking, you have decades of training and experience. But then on Thursdays, Beth plays the piano, acoustic, and she improvises. And it is beautiful. Your piano playing is absolutely beautiful. And so again, it's Granny Rocks On. And before I just keep gushing and gushing about it, but Beth, tell me in the audience, first of all, where you even came up with Granny Rocks On and the idea of bringing your piano playing and your wisdom in live streams like this to Facebook.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for everything you've said. And I want to thank you for actually having seen what I've done so that you could connect to it. Otherwise, I feel like I'm just, talking about myself. It's very uncomfortable. You know what I mean? And I want to tell you the story of me playing the piano. So don't let me leave without telling you this, because this is one of the most miraculous things of many miraculous things that have happened in my miserable life. Well, the thing about me and live streaming is that I am disabled, and I have been chronically ill since I'm 15 years old, and very, very ill and very disabled. And for instance, I would say that since 1983, I have been almost totally housebound. And for many years, I was bedridden. So, and I became extremely sick when I was 15 years old. So, and I'm 75 now, if you're wondering if I deserve the name Granny, I certainly do. So I don't get out. I don't go out. I can't go to wherever people go to get to be known or to reach people. I can't do it. I have to play at home. I have to play the piano at home. I have to do all of that because occasionally my husband will take me out. Like I have to get to the dentist. It could be years before I get to the dentist. So for me, live streaming, which is very, very challenging on a technical level, if you really, especially if you're doing music, otherwise it's not that complicated. Live streaming was a way of reaching out to people and overcoming all of the obstacles that are created by my physical condition. Because I'm always looking for the way through, the other way, I've been so blocked in my life that I'm always taking every block as a directional signal. Well, then how can I do it? How can I do it? How can I do it? And somebody told me about live streaming, because I had been doing a lot of videos on YouTube and was actually very successful on YouTube. But when I heard about live streaming on Facebook, I got really excited because this way I could really interact with an audience. And it felt like I was going to be able to be with people and talk to them and have them talk back. And so that's what started this whole thing about the live streaming. Before that, I wasn't even interested in Facebook. It was just I had a Facebook page and people would put up some of my sayings or, quotes from my books. I have 6 books that I've written. And so this was like alive. And so once I had started live streaming for the program, which we call Granny Rocks, then after that, it was a no-brainer to start broadcasting Dreams of Peace improvisational piano, because I could reach people playing the piano in my living room and never leave the house. And so, by the way, we not only have my health issues, but we live an hour away from town. So, it's like not easy for me to get out or go anywhere. So it was just a natural thing. It's like, how can I bring this music to people? Because people started telling me that it was impacting them, that it was shifting their moods and shifting their consciousness. But I don't want to babble on too long, but I do want to tell you about the background of how this music thing got started when you feel it's the right time.
Oh, absolutely. Before you do that, though, let's just share your inspiration for your talks, because you do talk Monday and Wednesdays, and James does join you. So how do you pick your topics, or what do you feel really resonates the most with people, that you want to share with them? Because again, we already mentioned you are also an intuitive counselor. You have a very extensive background, so you're not just showing up and just talking off the top of your head, right? So what kind of topics do you like to share, and what do you feel is resonating the most with your audience?
Such an interesting question that you're asking. Um, I don't pick my topics. They kind of come to me just like everything else. See, I had a spiritual awakening in 1978 and a psychic awakening in 1980, and I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't religious. I wasn't spiritual. I didn't know about the, intuitive guidance or anything like that. I was a social activist. Actually, I was a Marxist. And I was trying to make a revolution and shift the world from the outside in instead of from the inside out. And then suddenly I had this break in my mid 30s where I started to hear this inner voice. And I thought, oh my God, either I've gone out of my mind or this stuff really exists. And so I started to work with people immediately. The first day that that psychic voice opened up, I had my first counseling session with somebody that I knew. I said, oh my God, I can see things and I know things and I don't know how it's happening. So she came over and that was the beginning of a career. So talk about the path of not knowing, right? And so I came to trust that inner guidance because it has guided me ever since. But I want to tell you that it's the form change. At first, it looked like guides and that sort of thing, and then before you knew it, by December 1984, I think it was, I had just been guided. I mean, step by step, guided to buy this house that nobody, a real estate agent wouldn't even show me this house because I couldn't qualify for the loan. And but I kept telling her that Lord Katumi, that was my inner guide at the time, kept telling me that I was going to buy this house. And so I insisted that she show it to me. And sure enough, 6 weeks later, I'm living there, right? So, and it's one crazy story after another, just following this inner guidance. But I got that way by listening. I was trained in this very, very specific way. It would be like I was told to, but in those days I could drive. I was told to get into the car, make a left, make a right. I mean, it was like that. And then I had no idea where I was going. And then I got back home and I just followed guidance and I was told what to eat. And I was told when to drink water. And I just followed the direction. And by doing that, what happened to me, and this is really early on, this is like, starting in 1980, I became so attuned to the inner voice that there was no separation between me and it. And in 84, KH said to me, we're leaving now. It's time for you to own what you know. And then it was me speaking. So it was me, but it was me guided moment by moment in what I was going to share or say. And in my counseling, I have really needed that because I have been very honest with people about what I'm seeing about them and bringing through healing tools in the moment. And it's always completely spontaneous. I never got any training. I don't have an agenda with clients. I just follow my inner guidance. So if I'm told to ask a person, why do you hate your mother? And they say, I don't hate my mother. I love my mother. My guidance says, ask her, why do you hate your mother? And I'll do that. Even if the people hate me, even if they leave in a huff, I just follow my guidance. And that's what I was trained to do. And the people who stick with me as clients go through incredible changes because I'm going to that level of the person where the truth lies that they don't want to deal with, but which is really blocking them. Like you were talking about earlier in your, there's always more. There's always more. People have so many stories in their heads about why they're doing things or what they're really feeling that very rarely have anything to do with what's actually going on inside. And so I was trained to live at that intersection, I guess, between heaven and earth, the human and the divine, just to feel that, but never losing being human myself. And so that is the long story that explains how I get my topics. And what I talk about is whatever comes to me is that I need to talk about. I mean, I've done weekend workshops where I didn't have one idea when I stepped into the room what that workshop was going to be about. And when it was all over, you could look back and say, my God, that was so well organized, but I didn't even know what the topic was going to be. So it takes a lot of faith. And so what it's the inside out business. It's the why people do things. I always want to know why people are doing things. It's very easy to characterize other people, to polarize, to judge. And believe me, I have those thoughts and feelings up the wazoo all the time. I am so angry about so many things that are going on in our world, and yet I know that it is not my job to vent my spleen, because we have plenty of people out there venting. My job is to help us to understand what is going on and why things are the way they are, what is going on in us, and not separate it out and just say, oh, well, so-and-so is an arrogant jerk. But look at the same qualities that we're looking at in that person, and looking at why people have those qualities and how much we have those qualities as well. So it's always about oneness in the sense of people being identified. Identifying themselves instead of just polarizing and blaming and shaming and getting nowhere, but really deepening our understanding. And some people like that, and some people don't.
So on the Granny Rocks live streams, which are Monday and Wednesdays at 6:30 p.m. Pacific time on Facebook, you have quite a large following, a live following, and people, obviously watch on replay. Do you get, kind of like charged? Does it get exciting that the people are live? Is it a different energy for you? And do you kind of tune in and based on the engagement of the audience, does that change, or just curious? Yeah.
Patricia, I think so. I think I do, and I don't know. I mean, that's kind of an unconscious thing, right? Because I'm tuning in. Sometimes before the show, I do have a topic before the show. Sometimes it's a minute before, sometimes it's an hour before. But something will come to me, and I'll say to God, or whatever that universal consciousness is that I'm listening to, I'll say, what do you want me to talk about today? Or I'll tune into the audience and say, what do you need me to talk about today? And that's on an emotional level, and then sometimes I hear, well, what do you want to talk about today? So, that's just kind of a dialogue with the universe. But there is that sense of what I talk about needs to be relevant. There are so many things I would love to talk about, and I don't. I have books that talk maybe on a higher level of consciousness, and I hope that didn't come sounding arrogant, but because I've gotten tremendous guidance about how the universe works, and not just living with reality, but also my book, The Healing of God, which talks about the evolution of consciousness. And as I've written those things, I write in a very down-to-earth way. But those things I love to talk about. They're very abstract. But what I actually talk about on Granny Rocks are much more concrete things that people are dealing with in everyday life. And I want them to get that same understanding, but through them understanding, oh, why am I jealous? Or, how am I supposed to deal with this? Or whatever. Bring it to that level so that people can actually relate. So I don't just talk about abstract topics. I talk about the ego, but I make it very, very down to earth. So people actually see it, they feel it, they smell it. It's not mental. It's emotionally based, and it's connected.
You're very loved, and you have a very large following, and people, you can just see by the comments and the engagement, on all of your broadcasts, how much people appreciate what you're sharing. And again, I'll go back to the genuineness that you share from. You're just very open. Let's talk a moment about sweet baby James Maynard, though, because your husband is also on the show with you. So share a little bit about James, that and how the two of you work together in your show.
Well, with difficulty. And sometimes with great ease. James was deeply into esoterics before I met him. He had been to Findhorn back in the 70s, and he was really interested in all of those things, and he read all of these books, and he was very mental. But at the same time, he had been a hypnotherapist, and he had trained people as hypnotherapists, transpersonal hypnotherapy, and so on. But he had sort of gone off all of that and was trying to, work in the material world and not doing all that well at it, I have to say, because he was not all that grounded. And then we met. It was really time for him to leave his profession, and we met in our mid-60s through something called Conscious Singles. And, men couldn't stand me. And so, to find somebody who was willing to be seen. I mean, I confronted him on our first date about his behavior, and he wasn't used to that. But, there it was. He had done something very hurtful, and I wasn't going to let it go. I don't believe in that. So, it's either the relationship is going to be real, because I confront myself. It's not like I don't do it to me too. And so he was a little shocked, but he came through. God help him, and it's been 9 years, and that we've been together, more than 9 years, and he's gotten more used to being interviewed as the years have gone by. And so he eventually kind of accepted that I was getting this guidance, and so that he really wanted to be guided, and so he allowed himself more and more to be guided by my guidance. It's not me, you know what I'm saying? And so then when we would work together, his ego needs to be, not activated in order for him to really be supportive. And most of the time on the show, he does a great job. I mean, he's there. He laughs with me. He may ask a question. And his presence, people think that being smart is so important. But actually, his presence is more important to me than anything else. And that's what makes the difference in my life. He's changed my life. I'm so much happier, especially being disabled and homebound and being all alone year after year after year. It's not easy. So having that presence, and then having him on the show, and same thing when I play the piano for him pretty much every night. He sits in the living room and I play for him. And this comes back to what you picked up earlier about how I am changed by the fact that there are people there that I'm playing for, because I'm tuning into them and what they need and whatever we both need. It's not like I'm just serving, it's for this highest good of all. And it makes such a difference. It inspires me to be able to play for him. And he supports me on Dreams of Peace too. He does the comments, because I'm busily engineering the program and playing the piano at the same time. I don't have the comments there, and he comes in, he tells me what people are saying, and there is a great synergy, and it's just divine. So did that answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I definitely, if listeners have not tuned into Granny Rocks, go to Granny Rocks on and Facebook and tune in with Beth and with her husband, James, because yes, you have a beautiful energy together. You have a wonderful relationship. And again, and the humor, it really is. And, you're genuine and you're funny, and it's just a joy. It's just a joy. Talk to us just real briefly about the piano playing, though. So you say, you tune in, it kind of comes through. You have to be a trained musician because you're phenomenal.
Well, here's the wild thing. Are you ready for this? I mean, my life has been so miserable, I can't tell you. So, I'm always sick. I've never been able to heal myself. People are always resisting what I say. I've never been able to get ahead. I haven't gotten a large following, no matter how gifted I am and all of that. So and I'm in pain every single day, and fatigued and just feel like, oh my God, why do I even bother? And yet I have the most magical things happening at the same time, which is just so bizarre, isn't it? So if anybody thinks that being divinely guided means your life is going to be easy, I don't know where they got that idea, but they sure didn't get it from me. So, as I said, I studied the piano when I was a little girl. Didn't have, very great training, but then at a certain point, I was about 13. I got a good piano teacher, and I went to the High School of Performing Arts, and I was admitted to a very small little conservatory of music in New York City. Everything was free. We were poor, 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 poor. And there were only 32 students in the school on piano, cello, voice, and violin, right? And and as I said, we were all on scholarship. So it wasn't because I was accomplished. For some reason, they thought I was talented. But I couldn't play very well because physically I was really not well from the time I was born. I have a hereditary condition. I was born sick. But I was remotely functional until I was 15 when I completely collapsed. So I tried to play the piano, but I couldn't play like everybody else. I didn't have a good technique. I couldn't practice. I was weak, and everybody was focused on technique, and I couldn't do it. So after a very short period of time, when I got rheumatic fever when I was 15, and that knocked me in bed or a chair for a year and a half, I wasn't allowed to move, much less play the piano. I mean, all I was allowed to do is go to the bathroom. That's the way they treated it in those days, and with a lot of medication, which destroyed whatever health I had left. And from that time on, I could not play the piano. Could not play. If I tried to play the piano within like a week, my body would spasm up to the point that I couldn't lift a spoon to my mouth. And I had the same problem typing and trying to write, but it was very extreme with the piano. I did not play the piano again until I was 73 years old. Now, you get how crazy this is? Now, in my 50s, they started doing music through electronic things, the computers. You could create these music and make CDs. So every once in a while, the inner voice would say, okay, I want you to make a CD. And then I would use a digital keyboard and a computer, but I couldn't play. I would like plunk out something on the digital keyboard, and I would edit it until it sounded remotely right. And it was an agonizing, physically agonizing process. But I could not sit down and play the piano. I just couldn't do it. My hands wouldn't do it. My shoulders wouldn't do it. So, but I had given up completely. I never even thought about the piano. And then when I was 73 years old, my husband and I were watching a mystery about some people at a conservatory, and I just started crying. And I realized how much I missed the piano. But it was something that I had to put out of my mind. And so, and shortly after that, I got this inner guidance to go out and buy a piano. Now, I want to tell you, pianos are not cheap. I mean, we went, and not just a piano, a grand piano, and not just a grand piano. I have a 7-foot, a very high level quality grand piano that was like a lot of our retirement savings, which we don't have much, bought that piano, and I couldn't even play. And so, but that was the inner guidance. So I just sat down and trusted that something, and I have to say, James was so supportive. He said, it's worth it. If we don't try, how would we feel if we don't try? And so I just sat down, and I could never improvise. I was brought up learning classical music. And this was so important for me to realize, because I couldn't play classical music. I still can't play classical music. I can't see well enough to be able to read it. I can't, my hands can't go through the contortions. But I discovered, and this is what my guidance was, if I just improvise and play what my hands and body allow me to play, I can do it. Sure, I feel really sore and I have a lot of pain afterwards, but somehow or other, it happens. I play 10 times better technically now than I did 58 years ago, 60 years ago. I don't know how it happened. So And immediately after we bought the piano, 2 weeks later, I was walking and fell and broke my arm. That was the second arm that I broke in a year. At first I broke one arm, then I broke the other arm. And, and it was just like miserable. But somehow when I get stuck on some guidance, I just don't stop. And so I started to play for people, and I used to be so terrified to play the piano in front of anybody before all of this. And I just started to be in the intuitive flow, and I thought, I am not playing the piano to impress people. I am playing the piano to help people, to support people. And I stopped thinking about myself, and I started to connect, and the music started to flow out. I could never improvise, and I could never play in front of anybody. And now I improvise and I play in front of everybody, and it's live. And I just don't know how it happened, but there it is. So it's very, very miraculous. The whole thing astounds me. And it astounds me that people love my music. Not everybody, of course, likes the style. They love my music. It's very original. There's dissonance in it. There's resolution. There's a lot of passion and emotion. And it speaks to people, and they write to me and they tell me that, after they listen to me, that it helped them with their fear, or it lifted the sadness from their heart, or something like that. And I thought, I have to do this. I have to do this. This is a service, I have to do it no matter what. And even when I don't want to, even when I know it's going to be painful, I feel that call, to serve in that way. And music is so dear to me, and I'm so grateful that I have this in my life.
It's just such a beautiful story, such a miraculous story, actually, and truly a gift. Because again, I encourage everyone to go to Granny Rocks on Facebook and check out the music and message of Beth Green, because Beth, your playing it's absolutely divine. It is, and I know why people resonate so strongly with you, because I do as well. We're coming.
And it is divine. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's where it's coming from, something.
Oh, absolutely. No, it is. It's phenomenal. Beth, just we're coming to the end of the show, but I wanted to just, again, your website is bethgreen.org. And I wanted to give you just a moment, if you could. You mentioned it, but I don't want it to get lost in the conversation, that you're also an intuitive counselor. So in addition to the beautiful sharing and shows and music that you share on Facebook, I mean, you've written and published multiple books, and you're an active intuitive counselor, correct?
Yes. Yes. Go to my website and you can read about me. There are testimonials and so on. That's also, as far as I'm concerned, very miraculous that I can do that. And you can register yourself. I have one of those self-registering programs. So if you go to my website, you'll see, I don't want to confuse you with too many, URLs and all of that, but then you'll see a button, it says register. I do groups. I do a group every Wednesday night after the Wednesday night Granny Rock show, where we sit and talk about the topics and people get deeper into themselves. There's a men's group, believe it or not. I lead a men's group. I'm not always with them. They have their own leadership, but I'm supervising, and I do men's retreats and couples retreats and anything that the universe asks me to do. And I do individual counseling, couples counseling. And I say this in all honesty, if you really want to know yourself, if you cherish self-awareness and you're ready to confront your own demons, I invite you to come and work with me and see if I can't help you to liberate yourself from the shackles that are binding you, that you don't even know are there. And if you think it's going to be comfortable, don't come. You know what I mean? If you're looking for somebody to agree with you, don't come. It isn't that I'm not compassionate. Oh my God, I'm incredibly compassionate. I understand the pain of what we live through, and I understand how traumatized humanity is. And I know that we're not doing any of these things because we were born bad, or that we're born blind. But I do understand what happens in the process of having experiences and trying to cope, and how distorted we become on the inside, and how that really blocks us from being who we really are and fulfilling our real potential. And I mean, sweet baby James, he will say at any time, he has turned into a ego-driven person into a nurturing, loving man. And that's that is, I think, what we all would hope for.
Yeah, absolutely. Beth Green, it has been an absolute delight to speak with you today. Thank you so much for coming on Not This, Not That.
Oh, thank you, Patricia. You are a doll. I feel so supported by you, and may the chi be with you. To help you, because we all of us who are trying to serve and trying to do good have tremendous obstacles to overcome, both inside and outside. And we all need strength and support and love from one another to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. And audience, thank you so much for listening to us again today. We've been listening or speaking with Beth Green of Granny Rocks, the music and message of Beth Green. You can find Beth at bethgreen.org, and please check her out live on Facebook 3 times a week at 6:30 p.m. Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And Thursdays
at 7.
Thursdays at 7 p.m. Pacific, and that's when Beth plays her amazing piano. And you can go to Granny Rocks on Facebook at any time and just watch all the previous shows. They're all up there as well. So I encourage you to do that. And I thank you for listening to Not This, Not That. I am your host, Reverend Patricia Caginello. And until next time, everyone be well. Thank you.